Is Coach Locksley underrated?
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, video content creator for 247 Sports and InsideMarylandSports.com, and host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. Thank you for your everydayers. We're free wherever you get your podcast, so make sure you like and subscribe to Locked On Terps. So let's get into it. Is Coach Locksley underrated as a football coach in the Big Ten? And I'm here to tell you that I think that Coach Locksley is one of the most underrated coaches in the Big Ten. Maybe you could say that I'm biased. Maybe you could say that I can't really have an opinion on this, but I really do think and believe that Coach Locksley is one of the more underrated coaches in the Big Ten. So I was thinking about Coach Locksley and what he has done for the Maryland football program and how he has grown this program. And I really do think that Coach Locksley has become one of the more underrated coaches in the Big Ten. If you look at what he's done and what he has done with this program and how he's transformed this Maryland football program, this Maryland football program is in a pretty good spot now. We're in a pretty good spot to succeed and to keep on going. And we're in a pretty good spot in terms of fans. We're in a pretty good spot in terms of our record the last couple of years, in terms of bowl wins. And when you really go through it, Maryland football is in a pretty good spot. And a big part of that is because of Coach Locksley. And so my main motivation to make this the first segment in today's podcast is because I came across this article. I was doing a little bit of research, just looking at different things from Maryland football. And I came across this article on 247 Sports, and they had ranked Coach Locksley as the third worst coach in the conference behind Ryan Walters at Purdue and Foster at UCLA. They ranked Coach Locksley the 16th best, or you could say the third worst coach in the conference. And I think that I don't like that ranking for Coach Locksley. I think he deserves to be higher. I think he's a really good coach for Maryland football, and I think he is way too low. If you look at his first couple of years, you would say, Coach Locksley didn't seem like a great coach. 2019, 3-9, 1-8 in the Big Ten. But as a college football coach that takes over a program that was in shambles, that's where the Maryland football program was. It was in shambles. We were losing recruits. We were making national news for the wrong reasons. We were not in a good spot as a program. It takes a little bit to build up a college football program. It just does. It's not an overnight thing. It's not a thing where you snap your fingers and, oh, you're a 10-win team. That's not what happens in college football. When you take over a program, a lot of times the program's in the dumps. A lot of the time the program's not in a good spot. There's a reason why that the college is hiring a new coach. And unless it's like a situation with DeBoer going from Washington to Alabama and Coach Saban just retiring, and the Alabama program's in a great spot in terms of talent, in terms of recruiting, in terms of their team, in terms of the players on their team, their coaching staff. They're in a great spot, and it's already kind of a made program like Coach DeBoer to Alabama. A lot of these other places, when you get the job, it's because the program's not in a good spot. And it takes 4 years to get your entire recruiting classes in. It takes 4 years to get guys that are seniors on your team, or guys that you recruited, guys that you wanted there, guys that you truly believe in. Because you have to remember that you take over a program, and the first couple of years, it's not necessarily guys that you believe in. It's not guys that you think are going to be great for the program. I'm not saying they're bad players, but it's not guys you recruited for what you want to do. So it takes 4 years to get your recruiting classes in, your players in, and everything. So I think it's completely fair for Coach Locksley to have a bad first year as a Maryland football coach and go 3-9 and go 1-8 in the Big Ten. I think that's completely fair. I don't think that's crazy for Coach Locksley, and I think that's fair, and I think it shows that how he's jumped. 2020 was weird because of the COVID year, only 2-3, 2-3 in the Big Ten as well, and so we didn't get to see a ton. We just didn't get to see really what that year was going to become. But if you jump into 2021, he goes from 3 wins in 2019 to 2021 going 7-6 overall. That's a big time jump for Coach Locksley. To jump your win total by 4 wins, that's a pretty big thing in college football. So he goes in first year, it's not looking great, and the program still, it's not in a good spot. To jumping to 7 wins and getting a winning record in 2021, I think that's a pretty good spot to be. 3-6 in the Big Ten Conference, and a lot of people are going to sit here and be like, it was Taulia. Taulia is the reason why. Gone in here and said that Taulia is a big reason why our program is where it is. And I've said that this year is going to be a huge indicator to see how Coach Locksley is without Taulia. But still, we got to give Coach Locksley the same credit, because part of being a really good coach, which I'm making an argument that Coach Locksley is underrated. Part of being that type of coach, part of being a really good coach, is recruiting and getting some of those top end players. The best coaches in college football right now can recruit, whether it's Kirby Smart at Georgia, whether it was Nick Saban at Alabama, whether it's Coach Franklin even at Penn State. He typically gets really good recruiting classes, and you might not say he's an elite coach yet, but he's definitely an elite recruiter, which allows him to have a pretty good team year in and year out. Whether it's Coach Day at Ohio State, those coaches are really good at year in and year out getting the top end recruiting classes, getting the top players from the portal, and that's exactly what Coach Locksley did with Taulia. He got a really good player in the portal, and yes, that really good player played well for Maryland football and is a big part of why we won games, but Coach Locksley's the one that got him there. Coach Locksley's the one that put us in position to have Taulia on the team, so you have to give him credit for that. And he had to make the offense go still. He still had to be a great offensive coach that he was. And big reason why he got Taulia was because of the connection at Alabama when he was the offensive coordinator. But Coach Locksley still had to put the pieces together for this team and recruit Taulia, and he did a really good job at that overall. And so we go 2021, we're a 7-win team. Pretty good. 5th in the Big Ten East. Not horrible. And we win our first bowl game in a while. We win the Pinstripe Bowl game. And then 2022, we go ahead and go 8-5, improve again, and we finish 4th in the Big Ten East, which is a pretty good spot to be, right behind the Ohio State, right behind Michigan, right behind Penn State. The 3 best teams in the conference who are all on our side of the bracket, or all of our side of the division. Of course, those divisions are gone now, and those are no longer exist with the expanded conference, but that's not how it was. And so we were right behind the 3 basically blue bloods in our conference, at top 10, top 15 teams pretty much year in and year out. And so I'm saying that's a really good spot to be for the Maryland football program, where we went and got 8 wins in 2022, and then 2023 last year, 8 wins again, and again 4th in the Big Ten East, and gets a win in the Music City Bowl game. 2022, a win in the Duke's Mayo Bowl game. So, and remember, the Music City Bowl game was without Taulia, our first kind of taste of without Taulia in a while, and Coach Locksley showed, I'm a really good coach. I'm going to do this before Taulia. I'm going to do this after Taulia. And he was able to get it done. And so 3 straight bowl game wins, beating an SEC program like Auburn last year. And I'm looking at it and I'm saying, Coach Locksley's done some really good stuff with this program, and he's truly underrated. To rank him the 3rd last coach in the Big Ten with the expanded teams in that coaching rankings, it's kind of disrespectful. I really do believe that he is one of the better coaches in the Big Ten, and it's tough at a school like Maryland. It is tough because no one's going to talk about this, but it is hard to recruit at a school like Maryland because of the NIL. We don't have the biggest pot of NIL money like at Ohio State or some of those other schools at the top. We just don't have that. We don't have some of those same resources, and it's a good spot to recruit at, but it's hard to get guys because kids want to play for money, and I don't blame the kids for wanting to do that. And so it's harder to get some of these guys. But overall, I do think that Coach Locksley is underrated. And the last thing I want to touch on is the article did have something interesting to say. He said, with the Terrapins for Locksley, this might be as good as it gets for him at Maryland. Those successful years coming off subpar seasons with his first 4 years at the job. So they're pretty much saying that these 8-win seasons could be as good as it gets for Coach Locksley. And I'm saying he's underrated right now as a coach. But if he puts together and he starts improving and gets to 9 wins, 10 wins as a Maryland football coach, I don't know if that's possible. And they're basically saying in the article that it's not. And I'm not saying it is. But if it is, then you have to say that Coach Locksley's one of the better coaches in the conference. And I don't think that would be crazy to say. If Maryland's able to get to 9 wins, 10 wins as a program, because they're basically saying that we're going to stay stale as a program. And I don't know. It's interesting. It's an interesting topic. And this year coming up without Talia is going to be a huge indicator the level, basically how I view Coach Locksley. If I view him as an elite coach, if I view him as a good coach, if I view him as an and coach, because I read an article and I said it myself. After I released that video, I read something that was like talking about Maryland football's floor and ceiling, exactly what we talked about in the podcast. But basically they said the floor for Maryland football was around 4 wins. And so if Maryland gets around 4 or 5 wins next year, I could be saying, Coach Locksley is just a decent coach. Is he a good coach? If we get to 8-9 wins again, I'm saying Coach Locksley is a really good coach because his team's not as good as some of the teams that he's had in the past. But right now, based on the evidence I have, yes, the first season wasn't good. Yes, I'm not really talking about his time at New Mexico where things didn't go well. I'm talking about his time at Maryland. And I'm saying that he is a really good coach right now. And he's definitely not the third worst coach, in the Big Ten. Let's do some more EA ratings. You guys seem to like those. We're gonna rate the wide receiver room in terms of how College Football 25 should rate them. I will tell you about that after this ad from eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships, and is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're in a speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for, and with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Let's rate some of these receivers for Maryland football. What would I rate some of these guys for Maryland football? So let's rank some of these guys in terms of their ratings on College Football 25. The new game's coming out soon in a couple of months, and it's going to be really interesting, I got to say, to see where they rate some of these players after giving my own ratings. I feel like I could do a pretty good job for them for the ratings, and I feel like all the Locked On hosts could do a good job of rating these players. But let's get into some of the ratings for our wide receivers. I want to start with Ty Felton. I think Ty Felton deserves an 85. I do. Maybe an 86. He's one of the better returning receivers in the Big Ten. And some people aren't going to give him that credit. Some people aren't going to say that he is, but he was an all Big Ten selection last year. And I think the sky's the limit for Ty Felton. He can be a really good player for Maryland football. And I think that, first of all, his athleticism, his speed, should be high. They're saying he's the fastest on the team. I think his speed should be around 94. I think his route running should be like in the mid 80s. I think he's a really solid route runner, can separate. I think his route running should be like an 83, 84, maybe an 85. I think that his catching's weird. I have seen him drop some balls, but I've also seen him make some really contested catches. So I think his catch should probably be around an 82, 81. And I think that that's kind of where Ty Felton lies as a player. I hope they don't disrespect him because I think he's one of the leading receivers in the Big Ten. If you look at what he did last year, he was only behind Roman Wilson, Jayshon Jones, Daniel Jackson, Isaiah Williams, and Marvin Harrison. So that makes him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the seventh best receiver last year in terms of receiving yards. And some of the guys ahead of him are gone. Roman Wilson's gone. Jayshon Jones is gone. Marvin Harrison is gone. And so he's one of the better returning players in the conference in terms of receiving yards. And you can look at the stats. The stats back that up. And they might not want to give him that type of credit. And they're going to be quick to rank some of these other guys high, whether it's, they're going to rank Emeka and Buka high, even though he had a subpar year last year. They're going to rate a lot of those Ohio State guys pretty high end. But I really do believe that Ty Felton should be up there with some of those players. I'm not saying he's as good as Emeka and Buka, but I do think he's a really good player, and I think he deserves to be around an 85. I think that's fair for him. Now, moving on to another one of our really good players on this team that's going to be one of our higher rated players as well, Caden Prather. I would give Caden Prather, I think, like an 83, 84. I think that's fair. I don't know exactly their rating system. I've played the game a lot, and I've played a lot of video games in the past, but an 84 to me is like a pretty good player and a guy that's definitely dependable, a good player overall. Nothing crazy. A 90 is probably like a guy that's going to be like a real like problem anywhere in the 90s, but I think an 84 is like it's a solid player for Maryland football, and I don't think it's crazy to say that Caden Prather should be around an 83. I think he should be pretty close to what Ty Felton is. First of all, I think his spectacular catch should be in the 90s. I don't see why it wouldn't be. After the catches he made last year, the one-handed grab against Ohio State, the catch over Will Johnson, who's going to probably be a 95 in that game that he had against Michigan, in the end zone. He made some spectacular catches last year that were pretty high level. I think his catch overall should be really high because he definitely has the hands. He's 6'4". I don't think his speed should be anything crazy. They're going to disrespect his speed for sure. I don't know if he's the fastest cat, but I think his speed should be around 84 probably, which isn't that good for a receiver in that game. But I do think he should hover around an 84. I think was that kind of player for us. He's also going to be one of the leading receivers coming back in the Big Ten, even though a lot of people are going to want to give us that credit, and a lot of it's going to depend on quarterback play, but he is going to be one of the leading receivers coming back in the Big Ten. So I think an 83 kind of works for Caden Prather. Moving on to Octavian Smith. I say Octavian Smith, he's shown a little bit, hasn't played a ton. He probably, in my opinion, is about, you probably would say Ty Felton's about a 73. He's still got a lot to improve on. He's still got a lot to prove. Maybe a 74, but he just hasn't done a lot. But in terms of athleticism, in terms of speed accelerations, which is really important in that game and important in real life too, I think he's one of the better guys on our team. He's up there with Ty Felton for that stat, and I think he's pretty elite in those categories in terms of athleticism type of tracking, and I think he deserves to be up there for Maryland football, but I think that his catching probably needs work in the game. His route running needs work probably in the game, and he probably has to get better. Moving on to Shalik Knotts. I think Shalik Knotts will probably be in the 60s. We haven't really seen much, hasn't caught very many balls. He's 6'4". I've heard he has some of the best hands on the team. That's just what I've heard. And so I think that those should be pretty high for him. But they probably won't really know that. The ratings people probably won't know that. So they'll probably keep him in the 60s and keep pretty much every stat low for Shalik Knotts. Maryland basketball adds another really high-level opponent onto their non-conference schedule. I will tell you why that's perfect for Maryland basketball. I will tell you that after this ad from the Gametime app. Have you ever want to go to a game at the last minute, like a Maryland Terps game, but finding tickets is hard? I've been there before. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is a fast, easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, and comedy and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guaranteed, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Gametime has deals on the tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's a place to find last-minute tickets and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So Maryland has added another really good non-conference player to their schedule in Marquette, and we're already playing Syracuse and Villanova, and I think this is the way to go for Maryland basketball, is to schedule some of these harder games in the season in out-of-conference play. Because going off of last year, I didn't think our out-of-conference schedule was good enough. I just didn't. I didn't think we built up a good enough resume at a conference to ever have a chance in the tournament. And I was going into non-conference or into conference schedules saying, I don't really feel that confident in this team. It hasn't showed a lot to be confident. But even if we do something in conference play, it's going to be hard to get in the tournament because of our non-conference schedule. And we play in the Big Ten, so you can have a pretty good, you can kind of get away with it. But at the same time, you don't want to have to get away with it. You want to have a good non-conference schedule to align with the really good, powerful conference in the Big Ten. And it didn't feel like that last year. We played Villanova. That was really the only good team. UCLA, okay, they're Power 5, but that team was horrible last year. And we were able to pretty much beat them pretty easily, even though they did end up coming back a little bit during that game. But there was a time in that game where we were up by a ton. That was a huge Jameer Young performance. And that UCLA team, they've done a lot to transform that roster this year, but they weren't that good last year. So I'm thinking about going into next year and us having a better team, and I have a lot more confidence. And there's a couple of reasons why I really like having the strong out-of-conference schedule. First of all, it gives us a resume builders. I like this year's team, and I think we can win some of these games. I think Maryland can beat a Syracuse. I think we can beat a Villanova. I think we can beat a Marquette even. And all those teams are going to be really good. Marquette was a really good team this year, and it's going to give us a chance to maybe get some quad one wins, which is much needed, and so that we're going into conference play and we already have a decent resume and we've already played some really good teams. So that's my first reason why it helps build up the resume. It helps put us in a better spot as a program. And I think that's important to get it is important to get some of those wins if we want to be a team that plays in the tournament, a team that plays later on in March. I think that is going to be a big part is how our non-conference schedule is. That's just what it is. Purdue had a really hard non-conference schedule, but made the most out of it. And if you play some really good teams early and you drop some of them, it's okay. I think that's also important. Another reason why I think it allows us to get our rhythm early on. Last year's team, I don't really know what to say. I'm not going to say we never found our rhythm. We didn't really ever find a rhythm, and we definitely hit kind of rock bottom as a program in terms of last year. I was questioning, I thought it was only going to get worse from here. I thought we were only going to keep going down and down going into the next couple of years, but somehow Kevin Willard has made it okay. But I think playing some of these teams early on and playing some of these better programs allows us to get our rhythm as a team early on. So headed into Big Ten play, we'll be ready to play some really solid teams. We'll be ready to play Michigan State and Purdue and whatever other team you want to put up there because we've already played Villanova. We've already played Cuse. We've already played Marquette. And so I think that this year's team there's a lot of new players. There's a lot of new transfers. And so it could take a second to get the rhythm, and playing against better people allows you to get a rhythm that's actually going to allow you to be consistent later on, basically, is what I'm saying. If that doesn't make sense, I just think if you're playing a bad team, sure, you could get some fake rhythm where it's like, oh, we look really good. Oh, this works, that works. And then you go against Marquette, it's like, oh, that doesn't work against them. Oh, that doesn't work against them. But playing Marquette, you're going to figure out what really works, what doesn't work. You're going to figure out your real team. And with all the transfers and all the new players that we bring in, even though I really like our team and I think we can win some of those early season games, I think it's important for us to play some of those games and struggle early on. And I really do like this team. I also think we can win some of those games. With bringing in Derek Queen, Julian Reese is back, Jacoby Gillespie, Rodney Rice, Selton McGuell. We have a really good team this year, and I really like this team. Deshaun Harris-Smith is back, and I know he's probably working on his game right now as we speak. And so I'm excited to see what we could do next year, and I'm excited to play some good out-of-conference schedules games. And also, it's just great for our fans and me. I get to talk about an opponent that's a really good team, and we really get to dig into that, and I really like that for Maryland basketball. Now, that's all we have for today. Make sure you like and subscribe. Turn the notification bell on. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked On Terps.